It's time for another episode of Hops and Hedges, where we talk about beer, landscaping, and everything in between. Season 1 is proudly sponsored by ext.tech, helping you grow and revolutionize your landscaping business. Now crack open a cold one, and let's dig in. And there we go. Blake, welcome on the show. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good seeing you too, Heather.
So Blake, you are in Toronto, right? And you are Arbordale Landscaping.
That's right.
And is it Toronto specifically, or what area-ish?
Yeah, so, well, actually my shop, so where we operate out of is in Vaughn.
Okay.
Or Concord. You know, not a lot of people would know Concord, Ontario, but that's where we operate out of. But all of our work is actually directly in the city of Toronto.
Gotcha.
Sort of, you know, we advertise as a GTA company, but there's so much work in the city. We just we stick to our guns there.
Excellent. And so tell us a little bit about the company, how it started, how long you've been with the company. Let's hear about it. What's Arbordale Landscaping?
Yeah, so you know, it's a true love story where my parents actually met at Humber College. So they were my mom grew up in Ottawa, my dad grew up in the city, and they went to college together at Humber College, and you know, fell in love. And you know, after graduating, they bounced around working for nurseries and supply companies, and ended up deciding to start their own business. So they started Arbordale Landscaping in 1981.
Wow.
And you know, I mean, they always tell me sort of the early days was, you know, taking on anything they could. You know, they'd water your grass over the weekend if you're going up to the cottage, or, you know, small repairs and small jobs. And yeah, they just built up the business over the years, both sort of working for the business. And then yeah, and then when my when they started to decide to have children, which was shortly thereafter the inception of the company, my mom kind of took a bit of a backseat role, sort of more doing sort of the bookkeeping and that sort of stuff, and my dad started rolling with it. And yeah, just sort of, you know, kept on hiring and growing the business.
Wow.
And then I guess my dad also was a bit of a pioneer in the landscape lighting industry. So what he used to do was they'd finish a project, and he would ask the clients and say, hey, what do you think if I throw a couple of lights in here? And the clients would say, yeah, go for it. And so this was in kind of the mid to late 80s sort of thing, where he started offering this as a bit of a side service. And you know, he started getting inquiries exclusively for landscape lighting. And that was from architects, builders, you know, and other contractors. And so my dad thought, you know what, there's a business here.
Mm-hmm.
And he started a sister company called Moonstruck Landscape Lighting in 1990. And that company really took off. So my dad was running both businesses from 1990 until about 2015. So that's sort of the progression of sort of my parents involved in the business.
It's funny to think about how many people, when they start a business, they're doing it solo. And to think that your parents did it together, you know, like to have that kind of support, that sort of network right from not just the beginning, but even before it actually started. That's,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, to be able to work with your spouse has got to be a pretty special thing.
And you must really like your spouse, because I can imagine that that would be one big reason that some businesses might not make it. If you're working with your spouse and living with them and you don't like them that much, or you start not to,
yeah,
could spell for trouble.
Agreed.
And so
then go ahead.
Yeah, so no, you keep going with your story.
I was just going to say, so then my history with the business is 2003, graduated from high school. And you know, that was the rite of passage was you had to work the first summer for the business. So I worked, I have a twin brother actually. So I worked for the landscape company. He worked for the lighting company for our first summer. I went to university thinking, okay, everybody goes to university. Did not like it. And my dad approached me kind of midway through my first year at Brock U and said, you had a great year with the business. Would you ever think about taking over the business? And so I spent about another half year sort of thinking about it, and then I enrolled in Humber College for the next
Wow.
year. Took the same program that my parents took, how many ever years prior, and graduated from there, and sort of never looked back.
Wow. So before you got into taking over the business, what were you taking at university?
I was a big sports guy growing up, played sort of soccer and, high level hockey growing up. So sports management sounded like a really cool program at Brock University. And, it was a neat program. But I would say I felt it was highly competitive.
Right.
And I also felt like it probably wasn't my calling. I thought, okay, sports. And I took a lot of sort of other sort of generalized stuff to see if there was sort of interest that could blossom from that.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't there for me. I wasn't passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so, I think the idea of sort of a streamlined sort of career path that I could have in landscape and sort of, developing sort of my skills and having, a true succession plan with my dad was, gave me good direction. And that's why I decided to switch.
Right. Wow. And it's interesting how and we could talk a little bit about it later, but something too, like, because we know each other through peer-to-peer and through Landscape Ontario, but something that you mentioned in your pre-podcast questionnaire is how the idea or the concept about giving back and mentorship, right? So it's interesting that we don't always necessarily have a clear career path or know what we're going to be when we grow up, but there's certain things that drive you, right? So this desire to train the next people coming in and to be a mentor and to be an employer that people want to work for is, I think, a good place to be.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and my dad definitely sort of set the groundwork for that too. I mean, he was, president of Landscape Ontario. He was a Rotary member. He taught at Humber College. So he sort of really, like, that was a really big thing for him was the giving back to sort of the community.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, he has quite the reputation. So I'm sorry I didn't get to know him, but I'm glad that I know you, and
Yeah.
I kind of get to know him a bit by knowing you.
There
So
you go. Yeah. So
what else was gonna? Oh, so you don't do snow, thank goodness. Did you guys ever do snow?
no, you know what? It's we don't do any maintenance, so we are
Mm.
strictly we classify ourselves as a design build business. I would say when I first took over the business, my dad was probably my dad structured the business that we were probably about 75%, like 75% would have been our own design build, and then maybe about 25% would have been working with landscape architects and designers.
Yep.
Since taking over the business, I have sort of switched that to kind of the opposite. Like, we're probably about 80% working for architects and designers, and maybe about 20% of our own sort of in-house
Gotcha.
design build.
So is it the client that comes to you then with that design, or is it the architect that comes to you and be like, hey, I've got a client that needs this built. Will you guys build it? That sort of thing?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. So we've developed, or, I've definitely developed some strong relationships with architects,
Mm-hmm.
specifically, and designers. And if you wow them at every turn, they're, some of them are almost exclusive with us. Like, they don't even shop it out anymore. It's like
Right.
they get a client, they do the design work, and this is who's going to execute it for you, sort of thing. So just being able to foster those relationships has been really, really helpful for the business.
Yeah. It's incredible how far that goes, right? I think in so many different businesses, not just or not landscaping, but we find ourselves in a job where we feel alone,
Mhm.
where I'm really finding landscaping, and maybe it's just Ontario landscaping, But when we work together, we can actually really create some extraordinary things. Like to be a company and to try and do it all, you're
Mhm.
just spreading yourself so thin. Where
Yeah,
you have companies like you guys and like me and like there's so many others of us that really have that niche. And then we can work together to do a single project. It's so smooth,
for
right?
sure.
It's
Well,
so
and
cool.
it goes down to the next level too, right? So we do, carpentry, stone, planting, but I have like a breadth of other sort of subcontractors that I lean on, irrigation, lighting,
Hmm.
metalwork, large carpentry, structures, like, you build those relationships as well, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that you need to sort of foster and vet and make sure that you have the right people too lined up behind you to make you
Yeah.
look good much.
And when you have all that talent on one project, the things you can create are just endless,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So very cool.
Yeah.
So we definitely have lots to talk about, but before we get too much into that, because I can see that we both have a cold one open and going. So what are you drinking?
Well, it's funny, you and I talked about it beforehand, and I said I'm not much of a beer drinker.
Yep.
I suffer from the gut rot. So I
Uh,
was gonna come with a handy glass of wine because I am partial to red wine. But in the spirit of hops and hedges, I decided to just go with something. Oh, you know what? It's not even gonna let me
oh, it
show
shows
it.
up. Yeah, it disappears.
Yeah, it disappears. You can kind of see it, but I've just got a very generic Heineken, nice, easy drinking beer.
Yeah, and you know what? When it's a good beer, it's a good beer. Whether
Yeah,
it's simple or commonplace, but it's clean, it's easy to get, it's in the right price point, and you know
yeah.
what? It hits the spot.
There you
So,
go.
so if
What do you
you
think there?
had, I'm going to ask you first though. So if you had a glass of red wine, what are some of the red wines that come to your mind?
Um, I mean, it depends on how much money I'm willing to spend.
Yep.
But I would say, I mean, you know what, Californian Cabernet Sauvignons are just classics. Like they just always work. They're easy drinking.
Yep.
Um, I like Italian primitivos. Those are probably some of my favorites. I mean, primitivo just means first press, so it's kind of the premium of sort of the presses for the grape. And as well, Brunellos, I really like. Those are kind of what I try to sort of stick to,
And you're
and it,
a red wine drinker?
yeah, red wine. Yeah, I don't mind white wine. I would say, if it's a white wine, I like some of the spicier ones.
Hmm.
Gewurztraminer is
Yep.
well, my background is German, so that's obviously why
There
I'm
you
a bit of
go.
a fan. So yeah, so I don't I usually stick to red.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm a red wine too. My friend and I, we actually just discovered a new one called Silk Road. I don't know if you've
Okay.
tried it, but if you're into red wine, it does have a little bit of spice, but it's nice. So
Okay.
that's the one that comes to my mind.
Okay.
And Gewurztraminer, it's funny you say that because that was mine and my husband's favorite. I think for whites, it still is. And then there's another one that I keep forgetting what it's called, and it starts with an L, I think.
Okay.
But it's a name that even if I remembered it, I wouldn't be able to say it, I don't think. So homework for me, I'll have to look that up.
There you go. Yeah. And I just
Um,
wrote down inside here Silk Road. I'm gonna have to give that one a shot.
Yeah, do it. I think it's around the $15 mark, so it's not super expensive, and it's a really good bottle of wine.
Okay.
So goes down quite easy.
I like that.
I am drinking beer, and I was actually really excited because this is one that I'm having difficulties finding. So if you're not a beer drinker guy, you are not going to like any of the beer that I drink because I drink them hoppy and super weird craft IPAs. Um, and this one is probably my favorite from all of the Flying Monkeys, and they have a
Yeah.
lot of really good stuff. But the Mutants are revolting. I mean, it's hilarious. The can art is great,
Yeah.
but it's actually a really good beer. Um,
Okay.
but I
That's
haven't been able to, it's not as easy to find.
yeah. That's
So I have
fun.
to hunt for it. And then I saw it today. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I was actually in if you can believe it, I was actually a singer in an alternative rock band. And
No way.
yeah, yeah,
So was
I
I.
was. That's awesome.
What was your band
Um,
called?
we were called No Line. Like it was, we were nothing special. A bit of a cover band with a few of our own songs, sort of thing.
Yeah, we didn't even, I don't know if we did covers, but none of the stuff we did was good. And we were
Yeah.
Nevea, which is heaven backwards.
Oh, okay. Well, that's one way to
Yeah,
look at it.
super edgy.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I said that as saying that is because the guitarist from my band back in the day is one of the brewmasters at Flying Monkeys.
Oh, that's so cool. You should
Yeah.
hook me up with him.
I
And
was just gonna
maybe,
say,
I mean, not like that, but for the
yeah.
podcast,
Yeah.
that would be so cool
Yeah.
to talk with our
I
brewmasters.
haven't talked
That's
to him
so
in
cool.
years, but I'll yeah, I'll see if I can reach out.
Crazy. So talking about favorite outdoor places, and one place that we have in common is the Muskokas, right? So here in Ontario, so is it a family cottage that you have there?
Yeah, yeah. My grandfather purchased the cottage back in the 60s. It's in Gravenhurst. So
Okay.
just kind of at the mouth of the Muskokas there. Yeah, my grandfather bought it back in the 60s, and then, my parents, they started going up there. They were teenagers at that point, sort of thing. And so my dad and then when my mom came along, like they would go up and when whatnot. So I've grown up there. Like I was there since I was an infant, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
that was summers. Like summers were so precious that
Oh,
every weekend was spent up at the cottage. So yeah, it's definitely my safe place.
that's awesome. I didn't have like a family cottage growing up, but we did have um like we had aunts and uncles that lived kind of all over, so it was always exciting to go on the field trip to them for a week or a weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting how much more of the Muskokas I've seen since getting into landscaping.
Oh,
Because
okay.
we've made, I mean, through peer to peer, we've made so many different friends.
Yeah.
So going to visit, I've been up there doing like horticultural talks and whatnot and
Oh,
things like
cool.
that. I still have big dreams to do like a cottage design.
Yeah.
Mostly gardens. Like, oh man, I would just love to
Hmm.
do something up there. We'll see. Maybe one day
Yeah.
I'll have a place of my own.
There you go.
When I win
But
that lottery, I never buy tickets for.
I also feel like what's nice about sort of like Muskoka landscaping is that like you can get a bit of everything, right? There's some people that want the super traditional. There's some people that want sort of that sort of rustic sort of cottage, almost like, industrial vibe sort of thing. And then you get like the ultra modern sort of,
Yeah,
so like I think there's a really nice breadth of design
a
and
nice mix.
yeah, and mix up there for sure.
I think some of the favorites that I've seen, I look forward to watching the Landscape Ontario Awards every year.
Hmm.
Um, whether or not I believe in the awards is maybe something different. I don't know. That's a whole other podcast episode. But there's
Yeah.
money that you have to pay to get in, and then there's each topic has or category has a ridiculous number of winners. So it's like, what? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
understand. It's still
Believe
awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome, and believe me, like that's something like because like I am pretty involved with Landscape Ontario, so that's
Yeah,
something that there's actually a committee being put together. I'm hoping to sit on that committee to sort of discuss the awards because
there you
it
go.
needs some tweaking for sure.
Yeah. But it's something that I look forward to watching every year,
Yeah.
right? And it's so cool to see what people are doing. But some of my favorites, I've got a few of them up on my vision board here. It's interesting. I'm probably a maximalist. Like behind me, there's a whole bunch of stuff. In front of me, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can't see.
Hmm.
But I love some of the ones that I can't tell. That actually might be one of yours, but I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
look at it ahead of time, so I don't want to pull it up in case it's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but the ones that I really like are the ones where it almost looks like the landscape has like grown around the cottage. So like
Hmm.
the cottage has been there for so long that the landscape has just evolved.
Right.
And I love when it looks natural and it like it's always been there,
Yeah.
even though it's designed that way.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
I yeah, I just love that. That's something else we have in common too, is the love of natural stone. Because you can't go wrong. I'm waiting. Somebody's gonna come on this podcast and challenge everybody, but I think so far, every single person has said natural stone, any natural stone.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as natural stone goes, it's, you're going to get the best product at the end of the day, the most beauty sort of thing. Can't say I'm crazy about a lot of the imported stuff that's coming in.
Yeah.
Some of the colors are a little odd and whatnot, but I mean, it's all budget related, right? It's like if you can afford it, it is certainly the best way to go.
Right. Yeah. And with the natural stone too, it never goes out of style.
That's right.
And that's something with the trends, right? I find, so I'm sure you've had some conversations too with clients. It's like, okay, well, I understand you want a really high-end, modern, contemporary landscape, but your home was built in the 70s
Yeah.
and it's not ultra modern or contemporary. So we can do a modern landscape, but they don't match,
Yeah.
right? You have kind of this disconnect.
Yeah.
And then something I often get a little bit, I don't know, eye twitchy about is when you have a warm tone house and you install a massive hardscape in cold tone stone.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I just
agree.
need to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
great stonework, but
yeah, exactly. But and it can be hard too, right? I mean, what I'm finding about natural stone that the biggest challenge is that the quarries no longer are producing natural cleft stone, right?
hmm,
So we're having a tough time finding stone that's got sort of like, pebble top, that sort of traditional wavy top sort of stone.
mm-hmm,
And it's a total, it's totally the quarries that are driving that, right? Because you can't find the master craftsmen that they used to have to be able to split this stone so beautifully. And
right.
and the other is that when you do split stone, if there's natural fissures or, cracks in the stone, you end up with a lot of waste. So
Right.
now the quarries are saying, well, why would we have to find these people to do this master craftsmanship, which you can't find anymore, and
Yeah.
we instead of getting, let's call it 75%, 80% yield out of a block of stone, well, now if we just saw it and sandblast it, we're going to get 100% yield. So it's becoming more challenging to actually find natural cleft stone that does fit with these, like you said, traditional homes sort of thing that people
Yeah.
are looking for.
And I mean,
So
there are some man-made concrete products that actually have really nice surface texture, like a naturalized sort of texture.
yeah,
Um, but and then there's some that are not so good, which we won't list any of them. But stone selection is so important. And I keep telling people, if you're not really familiar with stone, go to the stone yard and look,
yeah,
right? Like as a landscape contractor, as a designer, I can tell you it's amazing. And I can tell you why you're going to pay $2 more a square foot or whatever for this one over this one. But until you go and look at it up close,
yeah.
they're likely not going to know.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. Well, and that's what you have to do too. I mean, so, as a contractor, like, we're a bit mercenary, right? Like I
mhm,
want the work. I want the work, right? So it's like you sell a design and it's like, this is the design and this is what it's going to look like sort of thing. So it's like, here's option A for this locally quarried, sandblasted, beautiful flagstone, here's option B where it's, this is, some imported flagstone. Here's option C where it's, a nice paving stone, right? And it's like, at the end of the day, we just want the work sort of thing. So, a
yeah.
lot of times we're letting the client drive the bus a bit on that, but there's only so much that you can sort of tell people to upgrade until sort of the budget really comes to
Oh
mind.
yeah. Well, and I think that is such a what am I trying to say? It's something that differentiates, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but differentiates people who are quote unquote landscapers with a truck and people who I consider are professionals, like
Mhm.
yourself, like myself. I'm a little biased, but people also tell me I'm professional, so it's okay. But giving those options, right? I think it'd be so easy as someone who is in it to make money, and that's why they're in it, to say, this is the stone that we're going to install and this is the price. Take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not why we're in this, right?
No.
These are three different options. All three of these stones, they go with the landscape, they go with the design, they go with the style or the theme of your garden, and they complement the architecture and the stone finishing of your house.
Mm-hmm.
Which do you prefer? Here are the price points.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, letting them drive that. Hey, all three work. But
Yeah.
which one do you like the most and which one are you willing to pay for?
Yeah.
So if you don't know your stone and you're not necessarily a professional landscaper, it'd be easy to just pick something out of a book and say, this is it. This is your
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
exactly. Well, and too, and you're probably finding it too, like clients are so educated these days, right? Like they're on Pinterest, they're on House, they're on Instagram,
Yeah.
they are, like it's amazing now when you go into these client meetings with people and they've got these full lookbooks and they know exactly what they want, sort of thing. Like the client is
Mm-hmm.
so educated these days, and it can be easy in that regard, but it can also be really hard, right? To
Yeah.
explain to somebody why that's not a good idea, sort of thing.
Right. And also that managing expectations, right? This is something that you saw in House, and it's a different climate, it's different architecture of the house. So let's take this as inspiration, but we're going to have to make some adjustments in order for it to suit your property, your landscape, your situation.
Yeah.
Right? Or I think they call it in design, I keep wanting to say the island effect, but I actually don't think that's what it's called. It's not the heat island effect, but the island effect, meaning, you go into somebody's house and they're like, I want my front garden to look like my house is in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, no.
Yeah.
As the designer, we can use that as inspiration,
Yeah.
but it would have the island effect and your house would stand out in a bad way on the street. You want it to look good and you want it to stand out, but you don't want it to be like, oh, that's in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where the backyard, that can be yours because nobody else sees it and it's all for you. If you want to be transported to Italy in your backyard, all the power to you and I will help you do it.
Yeah. That's
So,
good.
you mentioned you've got a favorite piece of equipment on your
Oh,
questionnaire. So
yeah.
I'm wondering if that's business wise or landscaping wise. I need to change the question to be more specific.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
But if you have a favorite piece of equipment,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like as far as construction wise goes, it would certainly be the skid steer. I mean, that's just
yep.
it's so versatile. It's the workhorse for our machine. So
Yeah.
I have one on every crew. I've got 4 crews. I've got one for every crew. I've got a couple
Nice.
of mini excavators and some powered wheelbarrows and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
those are the machines that we use every day on site.
It
So
saves so much time and so many backs,
yeah,
right? If you've got machine access, you better have a machine to move material because
yeah,
asking your crews to move that stuff, it slows down after a while.
for
It's
sure.
probably 2.5 hours of powering through it and then 4 hours of dragging your behind.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the unlucky portion about working in Toronto and why a lot of people don't want to work in the city is because it's very often you're working with 3 and 4 foot side yards, and you're working in the backyard.
Yeah.
So, I would say one of my favorite newer pieces of equipment is we bought like a micro excavator. So
Oh, cool.
the tracks shrink down to 28 inches. So you can get this thing into any backyard. And because, the hardest things we do is digging and wheelbarrowing. Those are the hardest laborious tasks.
Yeah.
So we can so by using the micro excavator and powered wheelbarrows, you've just sort of,
Mm-hmm.
alleviated your workforce through 2 pieces of equipment. So those are 2 real good pieces of equipment for us that we've sort of employed over the last few years.
And do you guys use any of the vacuum pieces of equipment for laying slabs?
Yes, absolutely we do. Now it only works on certain products. So we do have a vacuum lifter, like a big one that can take, I think it's up to 1,500 pounds. So
Whoa.
yeah, it can, but when you're dealing with big slab steps and, massive pieces of, 4x4 pieces of flagstone, super handy to have.
Mm-hmm.
So we use those, but it only works on natural stone and wet cast concrete. So it actually doesn't work on
Huh.
dry cast concrete, because dry cast concrete is
Too
too
porous.
porous.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get suction. So
Right. Huh.
so yeah, so we have a vacuum lifter like that, and then we've got the little, they're called grabos. They're these little handheld units, and they're
Yep.
great for little pieces of flagstone, or when you're laying the last piece in and you can't get your fingers in there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we've employed the vacuum lifters. They're super handy.
And do those, you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to sound so ignorant right now because I've not been blessed enough to use one before on a job site one day. But so does that attachment, does it attach to a skid steer or it attaches to something else?
Attached to anything you want. It's
Really?
yeah, it's basically a unit, like it's kind of like almost moon shaped, like half moon shaped.
Yep.
And it's just got a ring on the top. So you can hook it up to a skid steer. For the most part, we hook it up to our mini excavators.
Okay.
You put a chain on the bucket, sort of thing,
Yep.
and you can pick it up and you can move it around, knuckle it around, sort of thing.
Man,
It's
that's cool.
yeah. M-Quip is the supplier. They've got quite a
What is
range.
that? Sorry, NQuip?
M-Quip.
I'm gonna look
M-Quip.
that up.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah, they're in Mississauga, and they got a breadth of different sizes and styles and stuff like that. Really, really neat products they have.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't had a big enough job suitable to use one, but I can still appreciate a good piece of equipment, and that is really cool. That is really cool.
Yeah.
So something I want to make sure that we don't run out of time, but there's definitely things that I want to talk about here. When I was talking about, I always like to ask guests on the show, if they have a project or something that they're really proud about that they want to talk. And I love that you wanted to talk about your team and how proud you are of them and that them and you guys as a company executing at such a high level. And it's huge, right? And we've seen it. I think, did you also take the employer of choice program training? Yeah. I thought you did. I couldn't remember.
Yep.
But that's pretty cool. So can you just talk about maybe some of the highlights, either, I don't know, the apprenticeship program or the employer of choice or the certain training or things that you're doing that your team is plugging into? Because I know, I think too, are you not a, forgive me if this is the wrong terminology, but an open book manager? So you're trying to have those open conversations with and be transparent with your higher level staff?
Yeah, I would say I'm not open book with them.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a certain level of sort of like transparency as to charge out costs, as to like basically at the beginning of every job, what we do is we take our estimates and we can print them off into what's called a work order sort of format. And those are given to each of the crew leaders at the beginning of the job. And it breaks down every task, like task by task, how many hours are allocated for that, how much gravel do you have to pick up, how much. So it's very sort of segmented in a way that whenever when they're on site, they can basically just go through the production sheet and then sort of say, okay, this is our next task. This is how many hours we have allocated. Here's all the materials. Like it's very transparent like that, I would say.
I find crews really do react well when they have that kind of breakdown. It's like, this has been quoted. These are the hours that I can do. And then there's almost that healthy bit of competitiveness too. It's like, I wonder if I can get this in under, like there's this kind of, without rushing it, because you don't want to sacrifice the quality of a job just to get it done faster. But when you do get it in, it's a nice little pat on their own back,
Yeah, and we try to tell them to try not to take it too seriously though either, right? Because you don't want the reverse effect where people are going to feel they're going to feel that if they
constrained
or if they didn't meet those hours that they're going to be in trouble or something like that.
Yeah.
What we like to say too is it's like, because we're not on jobs for 2 days, 3 days. Like I would say, like our smallest projects are somewhere in the 4 weeks to 6 weeks range. So those would be sort of considered one on the small end for our projects. So it's like, you may not meet your target on this task, but you may kill it on this other task sort of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just laws of averages. And
Yeah.
we've been in business now for over 40 years. Like we
Mm-hmm.
have set production rates for, how long it takes to lay paving stone, lay flagstone, to plant
Yeah.
a tree, to plant a shrub. Like we have so many years of experience with that our production rates are very dialed in, to the point where, we know we're gonna make money, especially with the talented crew that we do have.
That's awesome. And I mean, that is so huge too, just having the experience, but then also the know-how and the dedication to monitor and keep record of over the years to
Mhm.
find out your averages, right?
Yeah,
So it's like if you already have that data, we know on average that it takes this many man hours to plant a tree,
yeah,
right? And then you can really be a lot more accurate. So
for
very
sure. No,
cool.
it's very helpful.
We're probably gonna run out of time with all the things that I wanted to talk to you about, but that's okay. We'll just have to have a Blake part 2, which
Okay,
is not a problem. So
sure.
I'm gonna skip through a little bit here. So you guys have a staff of about 18 people during peak
Yeah.
season, and for this season you are looking to hire. Is that still correct? Still looking for staff and
Yep. Yeah, maybe one or two. Yeah, like it's one of those things where you kind of have to gauge a little bit about sort of like where are we at in the construction schedule, right? Like
right.
where are we booking currently? How much more work do we have lined up, sort of thing. It's a bit of an ebb and flow, right? Like you keep your
Yeah.
core and your returning employees, and then you sort of move the balls around, sort of figure out what jobs you have lined up, how many bodies can each job absorb, sort of thing, and then you
Yep.
sort of play around with it a little bit. So yeah, I think probably maybe one or two extras would be helpful, sort of thing. I do have a fair amount
Excellent.
of summer students, sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're great because they kind of come in during your busy season. They help with sort of the push, but then they're gone in September, and it's kind of like, okay, now
Yeah.
I'm losing 3, 4 people in the in sort of the fall. So we'll see how that goes. But I think
Okay. Well, I am going to cut you off because I'm going to lose you. But
okay.
so people need to go to Arbordale Landscaping, right? So you can check them out on House or
Yeah,
arbordale.ca to see if you're hiring or to contact you. And we might run out of time. We probably will. So I was going to ask you
that's okay.
really quick, is there a book you can recommend?
A book, Simon Sinek, Start with Why.
Excellent. Thank you again so much, Blake, for coming onto the
Yeah.
podcast, and we'll bring you back for a part 2.
Sounds good. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
That concludes this week's episode, hosted by me, Heather Gerard at My Landscape Artist. Now, before you go, here's some info about our sponsor, ext.tech. In today's fast-paced world, your landscaping business needs modern solutions to keep up with the change. That's where EXT comes in. EXT is revolutionizing the way you manage projects and streamlines your landscaping, snow removal, and construction operations. Instead of juggling 5 different software packages, endless spreadsheets, losing track of leads, and missing out on potential sales, you could be leveraging AI job routing, client management, and financial insights with a modern mobile app that employees love to use. With EXT's flat rate pricing, you'll never be caught off guard. If you're ready to revolutionize and grow your landscaping business, visit ext.tech today to learn more. And for additional savings, use the code HOPS10 at checkout, or just tell them that Heather sent you. See you next week for another episode of Hops and Hedges.